Banished from Earth, classic game room broadcasts from the intergalactic space arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room, coming to you from the Intergalactic Space Arcade for the review of Stunt Race FX on your Super Nintendo. Is it super? Let's find out. Super duper, mighty super, super super. The cars have little eyeballs. Let's take a trip back in time to that exciting moment when racing games were moving out of a 2D space like Pole Position or Sega's Turbo into a 3D polygon environment like Atari's Hard Drivin' arcade machine. It was pretty remarkable to see something that started to look like it was a real-life 3D environment, and in the early 1990s, home game consoles like the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo tried to pull this off with mixed results. Now, Nintendo has this famous thing called the Super FX chip or something, which was a coprocessor built into certain Nintendo games, most famously Star Fox, to give a 3D look, like this. You can read about the Super FX chip on the internet. That's where I got my information, so take that for what it's worth. I don't really know how it works, except that I know what it looks like. It looks like this. Stunt Race FX with the Super FX running at a smooth 2 frames per second. Or so it seems. That's the problem with any of these polygon games on the 16-bit game systems. As much as I love the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, as good as they are at delivering fabulous 2D games, the 3D stuff didn't start to get good until the Saturn N64 and PlayStation era. There's actually a lot of things to like about Stunt Race FX here on the Super Nintendo, but smooth gameplay is not one of them. The controls are touchy, because by the time that you think you've turned, the game catches up with you and you realize you've turned too far. So oversteer is rampant here. It's very difficult to make subtle steering adjustments while you're driving, so track memorization is critical. But if you hit anything, you're screwed, because then the screen just starts barfing out polygons and who knows what'll happen. It'll suck you into the R zone if you're not careful. I like the little added effect of the ambulance siren that makes crashing seem a bit more serious than it really is. You can just restart the race. I also like the addition of the little eyeballs on the cars. It gives them some personality. So when you drown it, it's like you're doing real damage. Good times. I'm a sick bastard. I love the drowning animation. It's so much fun to drown these cars. I like Stunt Race FX's cheerful style. It's classic Nintendo. Sounds a lot like Mario Kart. But it doesn't play like Mario Kart. This feels like I'm trying to play a racing game through a 2400 baud modem. It's cheerful, it's fun, it's ambitious. I'll give this game a lot of respect for trying. It's ahead of its time. But that doesn't mean that it's a game that you should run out and add to your Super Nintendo collection unless you're already familiar with it. If you've memorized the tracks, you'll know when to turn before you need to turn. And I have a feeling that Stunt Race FX would have been a lot more impressive in 1994, when this look was the future of video games, which technically it is. The track designs aren't bad. I like the backgrounds and the colors and the ads for Mario and the other Nintendo references all over the place. It's a nice game from the respect that if you were playing these kinds of games in the early 90s, you were probably used to choppy, jerky driving games. Because we were, back in the day. Nothing ran smoothly unless you were playing the arcade games. It's hard to remember the days when arcade machines were way more powerful than home game systems. Today the opposite is true. Keep an eye out for health and turbo while you're racing. If you hold down the L1 or R1 buttons while you're turning, you'll make a sharper turn. And you'll definitely need to learn to do that for some of the faster races and the stunt tracks. There's no mushrooms, there's no weapons, but you can still try to run your opponents off the course and drown them with their little sad eyeballs. There's a 2-player battle mode, a couple other features, an unlockable car. It's a cute game. Not exactly my cup of tea, but I prefer my tea with a faster frame rate. And on that note, I've got a classic game room shout out and thank you to send to Mark from Bremen, Germany. Thank you, Mark, for sending Stunt Race FX to the show. Stunt Race FX isn't one of the more expensive Super Nintendo games to collect. It never got turned into a franchise. And frankly, I think you're better off playing Mario Kart, or at least stepping it up to Mario Kart 64. But I still give this game a lot of respect for being ahead of its time. It's Stunt Race FX, where the F stands for fun, and the X stands for presumably extreme. This was the 90s, back when everything was extreme, including your Super Nintendo. Welcome to the club. It's the Lord Carnage Club, where I give thanks to these backers on Patreon, starting with Jeff Captain Dauntless Breyer, Ohad Kane, Jack Stavris from Australia, Phillip Michael Stiles of Ortona, Philip Straubenmuller of Vienna, Austria, Landon Ellerbe, Justin Duran from Palm Desert, California, Steve Chucknick from New Jersey, Sean Zoltek, Rick DeBarros, Hemp Trex, Al Stiver, Chip Senkbeil, Shadow Minion, for Lord Carnage, Busy Signal, Jason from Kamloops, British Columbia, Will, Zach Brenner, Sergio, Matthias Hergert, Jim Moriarty, Rob from Palmerston North, New Zealand, Kishorken, Soft, Otaku. See you next time on Classic Game Room Mark III.